Today I fucked up by masturbating in front of the nurses in the hospital while waking up from anesthetic. I am definitely going to delete this later. I'm posting this under my Anon account for a reason. I'm just hoping that maybe there are some other people here who've done something similar or nurses that can tell me worse stories from their work to make me feel better about myself. Or at least maybe a little mockery will help turn this from a humiliating story to a funny one. Today I had an egg retrieval operation in the hospital as part of an egg donation. This is a surgical procedure in which a needle is inserted into the vaginal wall to the ovary, collecting mature eggs to be fertilized. While normally you only have one, injections are administered for about 2 weeks beforehand to increase the number of eggs matured in one cycle. In my case there were about 25 eggs. The retrieval is done under anesthetic, which I'm going to blame for all my poor decisions. Everything was going swimmingly until I woke up. For about 10 minutes I was totally fine. Then I felt like absolute shit. I've done this once before but it didn't hurt this bad. It felt like period pain, if you were having 25 particularly bad periods all at once. The cramps were so bad one of the first things I did once it hit was roll over and throw up. Though that could have actually been the nausea from the anesthetic, I am not sure. There was an IV in my left arm so I didn't want to curl up on my left on top of it, and I tried to curl up on my right but that left my left arm in very uncomfortable position too, so I opted to roll into the fetal position while lying on my back, that is, with my knees lifted in the air up against my chest and my calves and feet hovering parallel to the bed. This did help with the pain a little. What I realized later when recreating this position at home later is it's very difficult to get the blanket to actually cover your backside entirely like this, and the hospital blankets were not that big, so I'm reasonably sure that in trying to alleviate my pain I was also displaying my ass and genitals to all of the attending staff, 3 nurses and possibly others in the recovery room as well. One of the nurses went to fetch some kind of opioid to help with the pain. While that was happening, I was acutely aware of the intense ache in my vulva and pelvis. For the men in the subreddit who are not in the know, masturbating helps with period pain, and I was still reasonably sure that the blanket was covering me entirely and nobody would know. So in my delirious state I decided to rub the offending anatomy to try and reduce the pain. One of the nurses closed the curtain surrounding me and then he told me he was going to get me a second blanket, for warmth. When he returned with it he placed it a little lower over my body, covering my lower body and legs. I didn't really put what this meant together until later. To their credit, they took it very well and didn't actually say anything, and it is possible they didn't see it, but reflecting on their reactions and the chain of events in clear-eyed hindsight I'm pretty sure they did. To be fair, if any of them were present for the surgical procedure they would have seen me while I was unconscious as well, but it's a different thing when I'm awake and, well, you know. Anyway, now I'm recovering in bed at home. The pain has went away but the embarrassment has only increased. At least I humiliated myself for a good cause, and I'll probably never see these people again. Too long did not read. Was in pain and woozy after an operation in hospital, may or may not have masturbated in front of the nurses. My last procedure I don't remember coming to the first time, talked to the doctor, no recollection, and then passed out again. When I actually started to come to and started to get wheeled out, the nurse in saying goodbye said, "Thanks for the show." What does that mean? What does that mean? I never got an explanation but it must have been something embarrassing. I'm short, don't worry about it as it is probably far from the worst those nurses have ever witnessed. I see you nurse here, you definitely aren't the first person to do something of this nature. You'd be shocked at the amount of crazy things people do post-op. If it makes you feel any better, I woke up from fibroid, uterus, surgery and knew I was going to have a bad recovery. Felt that sweaty gray skin feeling. Nurses kinda fobbed me off and asked me to get dressed. I got stuck halfway off the bed, in huge abdominal discomfort. Finally got the nurse's attention, just in time to let out the longest loudest fart of my life. I was like a big balloon deflating, without the flying around the room part. Must have been about 12 full seconds of continuous fart. Epic. At least they started to believe me that things weren't all hunky-dory. I'm sure your efforts didn't even make the top 10 stories from that day, op. Just block it from your mind. The only time I had to be fully sedated for a medical procedure I kept forgetting to breathe when I was coming out of the anesthesia. I was laying in the bed recovering and would occasionally hear a really loud alarm going off and then a nurse would come and tell me I needed to keep breathing. Happened about 3 times in a row. Anesthesia is weird. You didn't assault anyone and you were coming out of anesthesia. So it's a wash to the nursing staff. I was having a baby. I was in full labor and the baby was moving into position and almost crowning. The OBGYN had her 4 fingers inside me and her thumb on my vulva. The thumb was resting on my clitoris and it felt amazing. Suddenly the waves of horrible pain turned to pleasure. I moaned, "That feels great." My husband and the nurses all laughed but the doctor didn't. She did, however, remove her hand pretty quickly. TIFU. I asked my best friend, who I've known for 12 years, out. I've been going on a lot of dates with a girl, and she told me that she loves me and she's ready for us to be a couple. I haven't replied to her yet because instead, I started thinking about reasons why I might regret it. As I thought about it, I realized I'd rather date my best friend. So, I asked her to hang out and told her how I felt, asking if she wanted to be my girlfriend. Without hesitation, she told me she's never seen me as more than a friend, so the answer was no. To be fair, in these 12 years of friendship, I never saw her as more either, but I felt like I'd regret getting into a relationship without knowing how she felt first. Now I'm lying in bed wondering how bad that was, and on top of that, I feel guilty for confessing to my best friend while there's someone who actually wants me as her boyfriend. Too long did not read. I was firmly rejected by my best friend, and I feel bad for the other girl who loves me. If you don't love the girl who loves you, then you need to be honest, not string her along. Just tell the other girl that you're not ready for a relationship, it's not that hard. Quit stringing the other girl along. She's not your first choice and you'll never be that serious about her. Better to hurt her a little now than hurt her a lot later on. Well, asking out a friend when you're dating someone else is kind of shitty, and I'd say you did one of two things. 1. Panicked because someone told you they loved you and decided to fuck it up. 2. You probably don't feel the same way if your response was to ask someone else out. Also, if you've been pining for your friend for a while, that friendship seems a little tainted now, not because you said something and she rejected you, but if there was an element of hoping for a shot with her that kept you friends. Now you may have to see if you can still be friends when that is completely off the table, and she knows you've thought of her in that way. Could go either way. Been friends with someone who expressed interest in me. Gotta ride some waves before you sell your surfboard, my boy. This seems pretty messed up. Somebody take the time to spend with you and get to know, then decides they like you enough to keep spending time with you. And you follow that up with, but what if it's bad? I would have just been grateful for the personal consideration and not been trying to chase a better fit. No couple starts out truly perfect. Today I fucked up by proposing to my girlfriend in the wrong way. My girlfriend, 20F, and I, 21M, have been together since I was 15 and she was 14. We have an excellent relationship. We've only had about 4 arguments in 6 years, and none of them were serious. I have no doubt she's the woman of my life. Here's how the problem started. For some years, I've seen many women complaining about how frustrating it is to be a girlfriend for a long time. For example, some say, I've been with the same man for 9 years and I'm still just a girlfriend, and how uncomfortable they feel in that situation. I understand how bad that can be, and I wanted my girlfriend to know I take a relationship seriously. At the same time, I'm far from being financially stable enough to get married, so my solution was this. I would propose now, but we'd get married in about 5 years. That way we could tell people we're engaged, and she wouldn't have to be a girlfriend for 11 years before becoming a fiancé. We're on vacation now, and yesterday I proposed to her. She was extremely happy, cried a lot, and I was happy and cried too. But when we got back to the hotel, she asked me how I wanted the wedding to be. I told her, I don't think it's worth planning the wedding now since we're only getting married in about 5 years. She instantly got sad and went to the bathroom for a few minutes. I apologized to her, but she was not talking to me. When she's extremely sad, she usually stays completely silent. After some time she said she wanted to talk about it on Friday, that it was okay, and she wanted to enjoy the rest of our vacation. It's clearly not okay. I shouldn't have done this. I thought she would be happy and understand my point of view, which we still haven't talked about yet because I'm respecting her space, but now I think I tried to fix a problem that didn't exist and ended up hurting her. Looking back, she never complained about being a girlfriend for 6 years. I don't know why I thought this was necessary. Update. I followed the advice from the comments, and it was really just a communication problem. Earlier today, we talked about it. I explained what my idea was and showed her this post. She laughed about it and said that doing this suits my character, lol. She said she wouldn't mind being my girlfriend for 10 years because we are still young and it didn't matter to her. She mentioned that I could have explained my idea to her before proposing, but in the end it was fine, and she said it was cute that I thought about doing this. I apologized a million times, and we decided together that I'll propose to her again in a few years, and the wedding will happen a year after the proposal, like a normal couple. She'll wear the ring I gave her because she liked it, and if someone asks us about our relationship, we'll say that we're getting married soon. Now, addressing some things I've seen in the comments. It's important to me that we have a wedding ceremony, but we are definitely going to live in the same house before our wedding. This year, I've stabilized myself in a situation which I believe the best way to explain to an American is. You're making $120,000 a year, but instead of living in NYC, you live in a medium-sized city where the cost of an excellent life is $5,000 a month. So we're definitely moving in together early next year, but our wedding will have to wait a little longer. Some people thought I proposed but didn't want to get married, and that's my fault for communicating poorly. I do want to get married, I just don't think it's possible right now. We both would rather move in together before having our wedding, we've talked about it. Another clarification is that, for me, getting married means having the wedding, not moving in together. She thought I meant we wouldn't move in for another 5 years, which isn't the case. Again, my fault for not explaining it well. Thanks for all the comments. Too long did not read. I asked my girlfriend to marry me but I only wanted to get married in 5 years and I ended up hurting her feelings. Did you talk about getting engaged now and married later? Or did you propose, walk around all happy, get back to your room and hit her with the number 5 more years? The way that reads it's unclear, and if that is how you told her your plan or being engaged now, I can def see why she'd be upset. Just explain to her what you just told us, communication is always the best option. Sounds like you are just overthinking a big decision, like we all do, and maybe worded it wrong or presented it to her wrong. If you two have been constant for 6 years I am sure she will understand what you meant and that 5 years is not set in stone. Oh no, my guy. She just wanted to dream about the future with you. Fantasy planning the wedding can be a fun, bonding experience. And you went and shut that down by being kinda tone-deaf practical. Now you gotta explain what you meant. That you're worried about the money and want to do right by her. And that the 5-year thing is not set in stone. You should not be deciding on the when alone like that. That is a decision you make together. Which you can't do without talking and planning and doing a little dreaming together. Dude, you just proposed to her and basically right after told her you didn't actually want to get married. Why did you bother asking? Seriously, if you asking that means that you're ready. No woman dreams to be fiancé for a half-decade. If you really love her, begin working on the wedding now. Are you going to fill out your retirement forms this week, too? 1. You don't need to spend a ton to get married. 2. If it's not happening soon, your reasoning for asking is a little weak. Committing to that 5 years ahead of time as still young adults is a risk. You're basically saying after all these years you're only halfway to marriage.